G'day guys and welcome back to SuperCoach Swordplay. This is Season 3, Episode 4, and apologies because it should be Episode 5, but I managed to stuff up royally last week. Somehow the podcast was cancelled before it was uploaded, so apologies for that. Spills and I did have a great chat anyway, though. We love talking SuperCoach as it is, so we had a good old ramble, but apologies if you were looking for it last week. It was all me. I stuffed up, but look, what I need to start off by doing is wishing this great man just to my right here a very, very happy birthday for last week. Janath, my man, how are you going, mate? And I do want to wish you, Spills and I, a very, very happy birthday for last week, my friend.
Thanks very much, Legends. It was a planned hiatus last week. Unfortunately, you guys couldn't get up a potty without me. I was actually looking forward to not hearing myself speak for once. But that's it. But no, it was a great week. We went to gather round earlier in the week, which was my best mate and I. We got headed up to Adelaide, caught all 6 games at Adelaide Oval. You can see some photos here. Some of the boys that we caught up with at the footy festival. I guess one of the highlights of the round, wasn't expecting at all. I've told you this, DR. I got recognised by name in Adelaide. So I put it out on Twitter later in the day, and the great man himself, the Duke, he caught up with me. He said that he was him. And so, yeah, eternally grateful for that. It was not on the bingo card for 2023, getting a shout out by name, but we'll take it. Great things in that way. I do want to say that this was a marvelous experience, and I guess you can see some of those photos. There was Shay, Dan Rioli, Maurice Rioli. That was at Rundle Mall, like the shopping centre. So it's just really? Those kind of things. Yeah. So it was just those sort of things that are gathering just once in a lifetime, really. Is taking a leap of faith. Cozzy in the airport down the bottom left there. So a lot of the players were just everywhere. They were socialising. Nick Dacos at a coffee shop. No picture there because he was with Cal Toomey, actually. I think it was one of the AFL exclusive interviews. Highlight picture there is in the middle there with the Bont. Big line. Got in early, saw him early. So that's good. I just one other thing to highlight. Somehow have a ball signed here by Marcus Bontempelli, Clayton Oliver, and Christian Petrarca. So
I'll tell you what,
no photos.
Pretty decent signatures.
Pretty decent signatures, hey? But no, great experience. And again, if anyone's thinking about going to gather around next year, I'm not sponsored by the AFL here. If they want to sponsor me, go for it. But it truly is something that you guys won't ever forget. So I'm looking at you two boys next year. Come on, let's go.
Absolutely. I already said to Lisa, I said as soon as I watched the first couple of matches, even back here, you got some sort of a sense of the atmosphere. Obviously, nothing like what it would have been there, but you could tell just watching on the TV how everyone was just getting around football up there. I was so jealous that I wasn't up there. I thought, I wish I had have done something. But given the fact that we know it's going to be in Adelaide again next year, you've had a great experience, mate. I really haven't heard anyone say a bad word about it. I really haven't. Everyone that went up there that I've spoken to anyway, just had an absolutely ripping time. So, yeah, I'll be there with absolute bells on next year. No matter what, mate. I'll definitely be joining you there for sure, mate. Spills, what do you reckon, mate? How are you been, my friend?
Oh, I've been better, mate. I haven't really spoke much today. I just got my braces on, so I'm a little bit rusty. I'll try and get through this podcast to my best ability. But first of all, yeah, happy birthday for the other week, Janath. Yeah, I hope you had a great weekend. It looks like you have at Gather Round. Plenty of solid players. You're a pretty tall bloke as well. Next to Bontempelli.
The Bont is huge.
He's a big boy.
This was the day after actually the Port Bulldogs game.
Yeah.
So even with I have no idea how he fronted up like that. He's a very good leader, and just non-SuperCoach wise and gather round wise. But can I just put out a special mention to how good Darcy Moore's speech was yesterday? After the Collingwood Dons game, that was probably the best speech given by a captain after any game like that.
I don't know how you feel, Spills, being an Essendon man, mate, but as a neutral, I was actually speaking to my really good mate at school today, Nicole, and she's a mad Collingwood fan. She was there. That's the first thing we said to each other. We got in like, wow, that speech, it was the first thing we said. And she said the same thing. It's the best speech she's ever heard from a captain. I thought it was phenomenal. It was all about the soldiers and even their families at the end as well. It was so well thought out, such high praise for that. He really went up in my books after that speech, Darcy. I thought that was absolutely elite. But sorry, Spills, you don't want to rub that into you, mate, as a Don supporter, mate. But
yeah, I didn't actually. I was too busy trying to beat the traffic home. Couldn't quite stick around too late for the end of that. Missed out on the medal presentations, and as soon as the siren went, I went. So I stormed out of Crown Casino with a pretty long face. It has to be said. Wasn't that enjoyable, but commiserations to the Bombers faithful. Who it was our game to lose. Let's be honest. I think the players will be hurting a lot more than the spectators, but also kudos to Collingwood, just far too good for 4 quarters. And AFL is a 4-quarter performance, so we need to get better. It's going to be a testament against Geelong next week. Definitely going to go to that game if you boys are keen on that. But just a all in all great spectacle. But very shattering result for a Bombers, man. But they just got us last 3 times by not much of a margin. So Collingwood are flying, and Nick Dacos, boys, far what a player. He's off his head. It's unreal.
Freak of nature, isn't it? Well, look, boys, I'll look very quickly. Obviously went up to Canberra as well. Watched my boys play. So happy to see a win. Finally travelled somewhere, and we chalked up a win on the board. So that was fantastic. I didn't actually realise Lisa's been to that many games with me. Only a second win that she's actually seen live. That absolutely shocked me. I didn't realise she is such a bad omen, because I've seen a lot more than 2 wins. You know, she must be the worst bloody omen. So this is absolutely true. We've got the family tipping thing. I won't let her tip Brisbane. Every time she tips Brisbane, we bloody lose. So she can't tip Brisbane. So I'll tell you, it's freakish. It's freakish. But look, boys, we're here to talk SuperCoach. So let's get these lovely photos down and talk about how we went this week. And I might start off because I'm a little bit jovial this week. Unlike other weeks, you know how much I've struggled. Like, I've opened up at 90K this season. So this week, 2263. It was a top 1% round score. I think about 2,200 for the round. Halved my rank, so just over 20K now. And I've given a bit of a 3-vote system here. And it's 1 vote I give to Cogs, my new trade-in. 136 on debut. Watched him live as well. And isn't it fantastic? You bring a bloke in from the opposition team. He smashes it, plays really well, but your own team still gets the dub. So what timing as well with that notification on the phone there. I'll put that on silent. That'll give you a reminder now. But that was actually pretty good timing, I think, in the air. But he gets a 1 vote for me. 2 votes, Mr. Shrek Darcy. You know, he outscored Tim English. This was a big test. He's beat up on Ned Moyle and, you know, some weaker opponents, but he was coming up against the hottest ruck in the comp this week. And he more than held his own and just managed to beat him on the scoreline. And who do you reckon my 3 votes is going to? You'll be absolutely shocked with this. Marcus Bontempelli. Oh, there's a high chance we won't see a better game than that this year. We'll look at it when we get to Janath's numbers in a little bit more detail. But come on, particularly when I had him as my VC, it just really set up my week. I just have fallen in love with this bloke. Coming up from a milestone game as well this week. You can't not love this man, can you? You can't not love this man. So, all in all, a pretty successful week for me, but not counting all my chickens yet. We all have good weeks, bad weeks. This was just a good week for me. I'm sure it'll be my turn very soon to have another down week. But, Janath, we'll go to you, mate. How did you end up faring in round 6?
Thank you, DR. You're flying now. This is what we've been saying the last couple of weeks. Form is temporary, but class is permanent. Now I got a 22.35, which I'm very happy with.
Decent.
Marcus Bontempelli, what a gun! You just knew that he was on when he played on Friday night. So just for context, at the end of round 1, you guys may remember that I was at 84K and now I'm into 6.5K. So
6.5. Well done, mate. That's fantastic.
The rank climb is going. Still not as satisfied as can be, but if it was compared to other seasons, I'll take 6.5K right now. We'll keep climbing though, some shrewd moves, hopefully. And just avoid some of the carnage, which is just so unfortunate. My weekly headline this week is that a team is the sum of its cogs. Like yourself, mate. Cogs was my trade in 136. You can't ask for much more. But yeah, really pleased with how it's going. And I might do a team update next Swordplay video, just so everyone knows how the team's tracking, given it's not publicized on YouTube videos or anything like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea, actually, mate. I'd love to see myself as well, buddy. Yeah, absolutely. Spills, how about yourself, mate? Were you a shining light this week, or did you take a couple of steps back, buddy? How did you go, mate?
I think you boys know exactly how I went this week. Yeah, boys. We scored 1,995. Yeah, not good. That's a shocking score. I didn't even hit 2,000. Ranked 32K. I dropped over 10,000 spots, just about top 40% score. It just all went wrong. Everything that could have gone wrong had gone wrong. So, yeah, I don't really want to talk much about it, but I think the numbers paint 1,000 words. So, yeah, we're not doing too good here, lads. Might need a little bit of compassion from you boys.
Absolutely, mate. Janath's actually got something special for you in a minute, my friend. But look, mate, I managed to halve my rank in a week. You can do the same thing, buddy. You can absolutely do the same thing. You're a great trader. You're a great coach. So I know exactly how you're feeling, mate. Believe me, I think so does Janath as well after 84K start to the year, mate. We have absolutely been in the dungeons as well. So back your gut, mate. Back your trading strategy. And I guarantee you, mate, you'll be back in fine form. But
and I'm sure Janath, as a community and us too as well, where he has a sounding board. We're always there, mate. Here to pick each other up.
Exactly right. And look, Janath, Spills did want a little bit of compassion, a little bit of empathy. And I know that you've prepared something special, which is actually dedicated to him tonight. And you have a special sacrifice just for our man Spills here, mate. So we're going to get a little visual on the board. Yeah. So, and shout out to Benny.
This wasn't my work, but this was Benny from SuperCoach.
He's quick-witted, isn't he? The
SuperCoach Insider. That was very quick. But to add to this, Sills, I'm going to sacrifice to you a tuk-tuk from Sri Lanka. Okay? So this is my tuk-tuk. I'm going to sacrifice it for you. That you have better weeks. To Tuk himself, one of our favorite players to watch, just as a neutral fan. You deserve better than this, mate. Hopefully, speedy recovery to all the Tuk owners out there, to all the Tuk captainers out there. This is a sacrifice for you guys. Here's the Tuk. The Tuk, and I reckon we'll see plenty more of Tuk coming in late this season, but also Spills. Hopefully, this is your chance to get some good captaincy scores out and really climb those ranks, mate, because I know you can do it.
Oh, gee, I appreciate that, Janath. But yeah, he's done me dirty, this bloke. I didn't think he was capable of breaking my heart. Not only I've gone through a bit of carnage this week, boys. I've watched my Bombers choke in an absolute special occasion thriller. I watched the trademark deliver the polar opposite of a trademark, and yeah, that's terrible, isn't it? A 40 captain. I think you thought Lads was bad. Here's a 40 to top it, and yeah, just got me braces on today, so I'm in a bit of discomfort. So the carnage just keeps continuing on for me. I'm in a bit of pain here, both physically and mentally. I've had it, boys. This is a shocker. Yeah, this VC on lead too. That might look pretty dicey out of context, but yeah, just missed lockout with Tuk. He was locked. I went to go Captain Constable, and it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I was pretty glass half full at the time. I thought, it's not all bad because look, 2 against North Melbourne, got a great record on them. Yeah, he's pretty fit. But, yeah, from the first 2 or 3 minutes, I knew he was going to play terribly. He was playing sort of – well, he was in the CBAs, but he was playing like a winger. Like when the ball was a stoppage down at the boundary line, he was in the corridor playing like a winger, exactly how he did in his first couple of years at the Suns. And, yeah, he was terrible before he got injured. I don't know what was wrong with him, but, yeah, he went horribly. And, yeah, it's a reflection on my team and my rank. And you see everyone else. You see LDU as well behind my head. You can't see what he scored there, but it was a 72. So, and plus Matty Roberts on field. So, yeah, couldn't have got any worse, boys.
A rough week, mate. I know there are a few in your boat, actually, mate, that did captain the big toque. And I just call this a pure, just an unlucky pick. An unlucky pick. All the signs, for me anyway, were pointing to him having a terrific next month and rest of the season, to be quite honest, mate. So super unlucky, mate. I'll remove that. Sorry, mate. I've left it up there probably a little bit too long, mate. We won't revisit that one again, mate. We'll leave that one in history. But look, it's time for me, mate, to go off. I'm going to have a bit of a rant here. And it is about a rookie this week, Matty Johnson. Now, Spills, Janath, I don't know if you're actually watching this game, but you know, when you're watching games, you watch your players like a hawk. You know, you watch every little thing that they do because we're thirsty for points. We're hungry for points, aren't we? And I want to talk about the difference that one umpiring decision can make on your SuperCoach team or on a particular player. So Matty ended up finishing on 35 points for the game. But there was a particular stage in the game where he got ripped off royally. So long story short, he got a free kick against for holding the man. Now, to my eye, and I reckon I replayed it 4 or 5 times because if I'm having a rant, I want to be pretty sure on this, right? So it'll be pretty embarrassing if I'm wrong. But I'm telling you now, it was a fair tackle. The bloke dropped the ball and he got paid against. It was a ludicrous decision, absolute ludicrous decision, right? So what happens there is that he loses 4 points for, right? So let's take 4 points away from his score. So that 35, that puts him up to a 39, okay? We give him that tackle. Let's call that 4 points, okay? That gives me 43 points now. A free kick 4, what's that, 2 to 3 points? Am I being too generous with 3? I'm not too sure, but I'm going to give him 3. Anyway, that's going to be 46 points. And look, who knows what he does with the ball next, but I'm just going to say that it's a nice little effective kick, 30 meters down the line to a free man. I'm just going to give him 4 points for that. Okay, not too much. But that then gives him a score of 50 points instead of a score of 34 off that one minor act there. Now, again, we can't predict what he's going to do with the football, and he could have turned it over and lost points again. I'm not too sure, but for me, that was a 50 that was absolutely left on the table there through what I perceive to be a pretty basic umpiring error in my view. So, boys, it's look, I'm nitpicking. No, I'm nitpicking, but I checked out my score. I often follow the Content Creators League, and George is 2 points ahead of me, 2 solitary points ahead of me, and 100 and something further ahead in the ranks. So a couple of points can mean over 100 in the overall rankings. And I know we're talking, you know, minor numbers here, but we all want to finish as high as we can. So that is my rant for the week, boys. I reckon he got ripped off a good 15 points in the end. All right. Yeah. Time to do a bit of SuperCoaches Who. So, Janath, we might start off with you, mate. SuperCoaches Who. What do you got for us this week, buddy?
I've come prepared from Gather Round. So I'm going to just 2 of them from Gather Round. Now, my best mate who is sitting next to me will be able to testify for this. But SuperCoaches Who go to the footy and yell for their SuperCoach players. So I'm here at Richmond vs Sydney at Adelaide Oval. And I don't think there was I don't think anyone cares or knows who Samson Ryan is. But every time he goes near the ball or is in the ruck, I'm there going, go Samson Ryan, go Samson Ryan. The poor bloke must be thinking there's a lunatic in the crowd yelling his name every single time he goes near the ball. So that's my first one. The second one's a bit more bewildering. So I was at Geelong West Coast. Now, when we think about Geelong or West Coast SuperCoach relevant players, you might have a Tom Stewart, or you might have a Jack Bowes, an Oscar Allen, maybe a Tim Kelly. But no, the guy behind me is one of 908 coaches, a super coacher who owns Jake Waterman. And he's yelling for Jake Waterman. And guess what? Jake Waterman scores 119.
What?
How about that? Jake Waterman. Yes.
Now that's how to win a weekly. What? Jake Waterman?
That's
Jake
a pod, isn't
Waterman.
it?
Do you know, I'm surprised that there's, I know not 900 and whatever isn't a lot. I'm surprised there's even close to that. Like, I would have been thinking 22. I don't know, just throwing a weird number out there. Like, who's got Jake Waterman on this side?
Well, I will tell him he was owned by 0.3% of the competition before that round and 0.5% of the competition after that round, after the 119.
People traded him in.
People traded Jake Waterman in.
That is unbelievable.
That's disgusting.
So
I cannot believe
those are
that.
two very personal anecdotal stories from Gather Round, which I think perfectly epitomize this SuperCoaches Who segment.
Well, very quickly, Janice, just to touch on the first one that you said about SuperCoach players, I gave Harry Roaston a little bit of a roast as well. It was about half time, just after half time. I said, you got one posse from your SuperCoach team, Roaston, get on your bike. And so I just gave him a little bit of a touch up there, a little bit of motivation. But he's been, I won't go off track, but he has been a nightmare trading. He's just been a terrible trading for me. Spills, SuperCoaches Who, mate? Got anything prepared for us this week, my man?
Yeah, I do. SuperCoaches who are not taking a 35 from Johnson. That is so great. Take that to the bank every day of the week. You've got the emergency on him on a Friday night. That is an amazing score, regardless of your rant, DR. Yes, he might have been robbed of a 50 or 60, but without the benefit of doubt, I would have banked that every day of the week if it wasn't for that one bloke. What's his name? Matty Bloody Roberts on Saturday.
Bloody Roberts.
Matty Bloody Roberts.
Mate, I really appreciate the kind words. You've got the best DPP in the business. You're playing for a top 4 team. Show some fight at Cardinia. You got yourself injured. You got yourself subbed out. You've coughed it up.
And screwed over Goulden in the same moment. Pushed him out to a wing.
Yeah. So bank the 35 next time, lads. Let's not get too hungry here.
Hungry. It's that type of season, isn't it, mate? I'll tell you what. Well,
I would have loved to have taken that 35.
Oh, mate, I think most people seem to cop Johnson. It seemed like you were so lucky if you avoided fielding him for some reason. What do you do, boys? What do you do? My SuperCoaches Who, now I'm not trying to have too much of a dig here, but bit of reality, SuperCoaches Who traded in Brodie Grundy. Now, it depends how you look at this, whether or not short term up until this point, it's been a success or not. Has he made enough money? I'm not too sure. Has he given you a few really good scores? Absolutely. Last week, though, when you've got blokes like English and Shrek going really, really big, that obviously hurts. And I think the unfortunate situation you find yourself in now is that you really, really want to move him on, but this is your issue. English and Shrek English is skyrocketed in price. You're certainly paying up for him. Shrek's gone right up again. He's in good form. Probably what you'd look to do is even target Max Gawn. But guess what? It's a week too early to do that. There's no way that you can trade in Gawn this week. His break-even's over 200. So Grundy owners, I think, are in a real pickle here. But the thing is, you knew what you were getting into, and that's the way that we saw it at the start. It's a sugar hit. It's going to be really good for you in the short term. And hey, it may work out long term. I'm not too sure. But if we look at what he did in the first half compared to the second half, it was like we were watching two different players, wasn't it? Was he on 14-18 at halftime? I think it was from memory. Something like that. Ended up getting close to the 80s or just above the 80s. But this is very worrying signs for Brodie Grundy owners. And you may be losing a few points here on the competition, particularly if you're running, say, Grundy and Rowan Marshall. Yeah, if you've got teams with your Shrek and your English, then I worry that you're going to be leaking points each week. So do you even maybe keep on to him just for another week? I don't think he's going to plummet in price and then look to get Gawn, because Gawn's going to go down a lot more than what Grundy will. So that could be a strategy that you'd look at. But ideally, it has to probably be English, just the safest bet, I suppose, but you're paying up. So yeah, super coaches who traded in Brody Grundy, you're in a pickle, but remember you got yourself in it. And hey, who knows how it's going to work out anyway. But I think what we'll do now, get another visual up. We're trying to get a little bit more professional here. We're going to do the rookie review. So Spills, first up, mate, we have Seamus Mitchell, 123,900. Got some great DPP. That defensive forward status works really well with popular picks, obviously Sheasel, as well as those of us with Jay-Z as well. So comes in with a break even of -75 this week with a 73 average over his past 2 games. Now, originally I was going to bring him in early last week, but spoke to Catter and SDS, and with blokes like Scrimshaw, Bramble in the 2s, I think it was a little bit risky going on him early, but I'm pretty confident going on him this week, mate, and I've basically locked him into my side. But are you recommending bringing in this great man this week, mate?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I reckon he's probably the most obvious one to come in. Like, that DPP is just so nice with Sheasel and Zeeble. That could work out for the rest of the season. Well, he saved, he scored, didn't he, boys? What was it, 9 or 10 touches in the 4th quarter? So, yeah, I think he's the obvious one, and he's one that I like, and I think I'm going to bring him in most likely. On the bubble, he's got lowest break even, and, yeah, surely Hawthorn persists with him short term. Hopefully he can make at least 100, 150K and be a nice rookie for us. What do you boys reckon of him?
Well, I'm locking him in. Yeah, as I said, I was pretty keen last week to get the bloke in. Janath, thoughts, mate? Are you bringing this bloke in this week?
Yep, locked in for me as well. I just don't think rookies that have 9 posies, 8 kicks, 5 marks in a final quarter for close game growing trees. It's like, I have to admit, as I was at the Saints Blues game, wasn't able to catch much of the second half of the Hawks game. But from what I've heard, he played a really good game, looked mature. Scrimshaw was the sub as well. So clearly if Scrimshaw's healthy and Mitchell is still getting the look in, that tells me a bit about how they rate players internally. And I think that Mitchell should be a great pick for our defensive or forward lines going forward. And like Spills said, that swing with Sheasel or Siebel at come season's end or at some point throughout the season could be invaluable.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. All right, next option we're going to take a quick look at is Sam Sturt. So 123,900 forward, is more mature age, was drafted a few years ago now. Break even of -28 coming into this week with an average smidgen under 50, 49.5. So I suppose my thoughts are, I actually don't mind him as a pick. I think Freo need to play this bloke. You know, he's looked pretty good in every game that I've seen him play. Obviously, his career's been derailed by injuries so far. Really found it difficult to get any consistency into his game. But look, this may be just a personal circumstance type thing. But the fact that he's only selectable as a forward sort of puts me off, because the blokes that I've got up there already, Radagalia, Fergie, who's doing pretty well, Van Ruyen, who, geez, I tell you what, Mr. Van Ruyen or Wayne Carey, do we call him, for that last quarter. And there's someone up there, I think Matty Roberts as well, unfortunately, who I traded last week. So the issue is, unless you're just looking to get out that dead rookie in the short term in Roberts and just get a straight swap in your forward line, I think that's fine if you want to go there. I think a lot of people, such as myself, when I'm not looking to get rid of those blokes yet, I want to get rid of more of a fatten rookie so I can actually keep my upgrade cadence. So for me, it's a little bit hard bringing Sturt into my side, because there's no one that I necessarily want to trade out of my forward line. Rookies and defenders, mids and defenders, fine, but not forward line at the moment. Spills, what do you reckon on Sammy Sturt, mate? Any interest in him for you?
Oh, definitely, boys. I think he's a fantastic option. Been around for a while, and the Dockers would be absurd for not playing him. But yeah, my problem with that DR is exactly what you just said. I've got I've got Fergie, I've got Asava, and I've got Van Roon in the forward line, who there's just so much more money to be made with those blokes, and there's just no flexibility and no logistics for getting rid of one of those blokes early for Sam Sturt, who job security is a bit iffy, and we don't really know where with the Seamus Mitchell. I mean, his run off half back was crucial against the Crows, and I really like that about him. He takes the game on, he's ambitious, and that's, I think, what the Hawks need. So, yeah, you can always flip him back in the forward line too. So, yeah, defensive forward DPP is a lot better than just a forward. So, for that, yeah, the pick's pretty self-explanatory, but nothing against Sam Sturt. And if you need a forward rookie to come in, I think he's your guy.
Janath, thoughts, mate, on Sturdy?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying in terms of that he would require a forward spot to be occupied. But just a couple of things on him that I think might be being overlooked. He scored 100 on debut in 2020. So that was in the bubble season against the Bombers at Marvel Stadium. So he kicked a couple of goals, which similar to what he did against the Dogs. He's got that sort of innate scoring ability, and he seems like an impact player, almost a bit like Jacob Van Rooyen, that he can sort of hit the scoreboard in patches and move his score from a 20 into the 60s. Which for some players, SuperCoach players, is what they're looking for, right? Those sort of burst players that maybe hit or miss. Some go for consistency. On the other hand, Michael Frederick is out for up to a month, so 3 to 4 weeks. So that should give Sturt a good run, given that Sturt, I think, was being trialed as a winger in preseason. But yeah, so he's definitely got decent JS, job security, and I'd almost be hesitant to say that he's the second ranked rookie after Mitchell for me this week. We'll talk about the next bloke on this list, but if you're boosting and you're looking for double downgrade, I think Sturt might actually be a better option than some may see it to be. But that's a personal preference, but by no means he's a must-have.
Well, I think this is the other bloke that lots of people looking to trade in this week. Some also went early as well. I actually know a few coaches went early on this bloke, but it's obviously Corey Wagner. So he comes with a break even of -36, an average of 51.5. And look, week one, wow. Talk about Timmy Taranto being a butcher. This bloke said, hold my sausage. Oh, actually, that's not going to sound crazy. The bloke said, hold my sausage. Crikey, that I was going with the whole butcher thing. Yeah, I should have come up with this script.
PG, DR, PG.
Yeah, rip there. So let's run with it.
Demonetized.
I swore before, so I think it's fine.
Oh, there we go, mate. But look, 178,300. Yeah, really butchered it in week one. But speaking of Janath quickly off air, looks like you actually cleaned that up a little bit coming into week two. So, Spills, do you have any thoughts about Corey Wagner? And I suppose after we hear your thoughts and maybe some thoughts from Janath, we may even try to give a ranking out of these three, mate. But thoughts on Corey Wagner, Spills?
Yeah, disposal efficiency has never been his forte. I think we saw that quite vividly, and I think it'd be a different discussion if Mitchell and Sturt weren't on the radar. If he was one of the only options, you'd be dissecting this pick quite a little bit more. But yeah, when you got those blokes ahead of him, it just doesn't seem logical to be going for him. He could be all right, but his defensive mid DPP is handy as well.
Yeah.
Janath, any thoughts, mate?
Yes, I think that, again, with Wagner, one of the issues that I have with him is he had 7 turnovers. Well, this is probably a benefit in a way. He had 7 turnovers against Gold Coast, but still remained in the side. The problem for me, though, is that Heath Chapman is a test to play this week coming off his respective calf injury. And I think that if someone's to go out of that Freo backline, it's probably going to be Wagner. And I guess the other side of things is forecasting. I want to get Chincotta in next week. If, for instance, if Saad and Chincotta are named together, it's almost a given that Chincotta will be one to come into the side. So can you really bring in Mitchell, Wagner, or if you're choosing between, if you already have Mitchell, you bring in Wagner, you bring in Chincotta back to back weeks. Is that a bit too much in terms of your backline? As in, do you have any reinforcements to sort of support other lines in that case?
That's a really good point, because you don't want to be too thin down there, dude. We know that lots of these blokes have far from rock solid job security. They could be out at any stage. So I think that's a really important point that you do bring up there, mate. Yeah, but look, we know that there's Nettie Long that's on the bubble this week. A couple of other bubble boys, but I think these are probably the main three that have warranted the most discussion. And I suppose just to add a couple of my thoughts on Wagner. One thing that I really do like is his attack on the football, and he is actually trying to take the game on. He's trying to make something happen. So hats off to him for that. Obviously that mature body as well, but he's not the cleanest, is he, mate? That disposal is a bit of a worry, but I suppose good to see that he cleaned things up a little bit last week. We've lost Spills. Hopefully he'll join us in the near future anyway. Janath, hopefully he comes back on, mate. But I think the next thing we're going to get to here is your numbers for the week, mate. AFL triple doubles. And wow, I'll let you start off by talking about this man at the top. Roll out the red carpet for him, mate.
So sorry about not being able to roll it out last week. But there was a sole triple double last week in round 5. That was Tim Kelly against his former side. So kudos to him. But we've had a massive 5 triple doubles achieved in round 6, headlined by, what can I say, the Brownlow favourite possibly this season, Marcus Bontempelli. 31 disposals, 10 tackles, 18 contested possessions, 8 clearances, 2 goals. What a performance, star. I do want to pay a very, very big shout out to Rory Laird and Tim Taranto, a couple of the SuperCoach boys. They're Laird, 29 touches, 12 tackles, 21 contested possessions, 10 clearances, star. Tim Taranto, 33 posies, 10 tackles, 16 contested possessions. Got 9 coaches' votes, so clearly the coaches rated his game. So I thought that was one of the best games he played for his career, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, big ups to those 5 boys, Willem Drew and Jai Newcomb also, with their respective triple doubles. Drew 25 touches, 10 tackles, 11 contested possessions, and Newcomb 26 touches, 8 marks, 10 tackles, 15 contested possessions, almost a quadruple double. If you got a couple more marks in there, he would have got the quadruple double, which hasn't been achieved this season.
Oh, isn't it great when you own 3 out of the 5? It's just to own 3 blokes in the 1 week that are going to triple double. You know you're going to have a pretty solid week, hopefully, and your VC, the bloke that is right up the top. And if we're talking basketball terms, you know, that mark from Bond, it's like you had a 360 dunk or something in there, mate. You know, that just didn't top it off? Didn't that top it off? The fact he came down with it, I didn't think he was actually going to come down with that, but yeah, just phenomenal, mate. But yeah, a big shout out to those 5 there. And then we've obviously got Libber, Cogs, Walsh, Rowley, Anderson, Caldwell, and Mitchell as well.
It was just one of those games for Bont where he just, every single time he touched it, it looked as though he was going to do something productive with it. Whether it be a handball out of traffic, or whether it be like one of the most vivid plays I remember, he was on the right wing and he got the ball and then he spurred out of traffic and then he bulleted it straight to Jamara and ran past him almost to get the ball back. I'm like, all right, you know your VC is on when the kick is going to advantage and it's not a 50-50 kick, or like the play kicks it 2 drops the mark, which is what happened to Goulden. I felt like every single time against Geelong, Goulden got the ball, either his teammates dropped a mark for a score assist, or he got a free against for something that could have been a holding the ball, and you're like, it's just one of those games. But this was the reverse of that in a very good way for Marcus Bontempelli.
Yeah, I almost lost for words, mate. And as I mentioned before, may not see another game like this in a fair while, I don't think. Just absolute hats off to the man, mate. But look, Spill still hasn't joined us. There's still a chance, mate. There's still a chance that he may come back. The poor bugger, though. Yeah, tough week. He's got the braces on. I'll tell you what. But, mate, it's time to open the mailbag. So we've got 4 questions here, all relevant certainly for this week. We might start off at the top, and it's the best trading option for Took. So we know our man Spills is obviously in this situation this week. I know many other coaches are. He was a pretty popular trade-in, not overall in SuperCoach, but it just seems like lots of people that I know in the community seem to trade him in. So best option to trade in for Touk. Well, I suppose one thing that we are blessed with this year is the magic of lots of DPP. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a midfielder. It could be a forward. It certainly could be a defender as well. So there are a number of options this week. But, mate, I know that you're obviously luckily not in this position, but is there anyone in your mind that you think is really obvious trading for Touk? We might even start off with possibly a midfielder, mate, or is there anyone else that you got in mind? Someone that just comes to mind straight away?
Well, it's not something that comes straight to mind per se, but I think there's two standout candidates for me, and that's Zach Merritt and Sam Walsh. Now, they might seem a bit left field in terms of, okay, they're not your standard Clayton Oliver, that sort of thing, but something we've learned this season is I think it's a bit hard to just play by names this year. Like, just have a look at Jack Steele, for instance. We've got to be proactive, and one stat that I saw a lot of was that Darcy Parish, Zach Merritt was the highest possession, like, how to phrase this? So Parish passed the ball to Merritt. That 1-2 combination was the highest across any two players in the league. So Parish getting the ball to Merritt.
Wow,
so that's something that I saw was really missing for Essendon on the weekend, is that kick inside, that sort of penetrating kick inside 50, which with SuperCoach, what we know is that score assists are almost worth as much as a goal, for instance. So I think Merritt's a really good option there. And with Sam Walsh, his CBAs went up from 39% to 83% from his first game back to his second game back. We had all of our 5 key mids, which doesn't seem like we're playing 5 key mids because they're all bloody useless at the moment. Just stat padding with their possessions. But I mean, SuperCoach doesn't really care about if you stat pad or not. So I think Sam Walsh is a fine pick. For me, if I was in the position, I think that the first thing I'd look to do is look at my buys, because in normal years, that last buy, the round 15 buy, for instance, is the one where you're trying to target to get players in. But I fear that if a lot of coaches in my position and have similar players to the ones that a lot of us actually have, when you have teams like North Melbourne, Bulldogs, Giants, Richmond, Port Adelaide, all on the buy in one round, and then Carlton, those 6 teams have fantasy relevant players in each of them. So if you're in that position where you have Green, Caniglio, Taranto, Hopper, Bontempelli, English, and just the list just keeps going on, right?
It does.
It's probably
scary.
safe to actually avoid Walsh and go for Merritt, who I think has the buy just before that. So that's my opinion. What do you reckon, DR? Who's a standout mid selection? And then we'll sort of go on to one of the other lines.
Yeah, well, look, for me, probably the bloke that stands out for me is Rory Laird, if you don't have him. I think he's shown that he's in really good form at the moment. Higher 3-round average than Clary Oliver. What I really loved on the weekend wasn't the fact that he got 29 disposals. It was 12 tackles. You know, that's what I really, really wanted to see from him. I wanted to see just a huge tackling game. That tells me that he's back. When he's tackling, that's classic Rory Laird for me. Second highest count was only 8 this year. You know, that's just a big, big sign for me that a player's on when they're actually willing to tackle. They're hunting the ball, they're hunting their opposition. So I think his break even comes at just over 100 from memory. I think I might have it up here. So
you're right, mate. So it's
break even. Yeah. So I think when you're looking at someone like a Rory Laird, apart from that 50, it hasn't been absolutely disastrous. You know, I think he's in form again. So I really do like Rory Laird. I think Bont's absolutely on fire if you want to pay there. And maybe, look, there's a couple of others that might sound a little bit riskier. One bloke is Caleb Sarong. The way that he's playing at the moment for Freo, if you're looking to go like a really lone wolf pick, you could look at Sarong. And the other one is, look, always a bit of a risk. You never know what he's going to do, but the form he's in, Jordan De Goey, I think is also in top-notch form as well. So just throwing a couple of other pods out there. They're not necessarily blokes that I'd have the guts to go with, but a great point you mentioned before, mate. Make sure you look at the buys, and names don't necessarily mean anything this year. You know, look at the disappointing season that Neil's had, for example, apart from that one big game. So, Yeah, mate. They're probably a few of the mids that I'd put out there anyway. How about, do you want to go with a back or possibly a forward option, mate?
I think that if you're in the position where you don't have a cogs, that is definitely one to go with. He's almost a shoe-in at this point to be a top 6 forward, even with possible DPPs coming in. But we're seeing right now with someone like a Christian Petrarca, 34%. He was at 34% forward, 1% off getting that forward DPP, which I think is as close as he's going to get this season, just because with the way that Melbourne's been playing, he got 79% CBAs against Richmond. I think that was our chance to get him as a DPP. So I wouldn't not bring in cogs because you think that you're going to get a forward that is a true mid, for instance. Cogs is a true mid. He is the one that if he was a mid only and he became a forward, you would take him. Take my money. You would get him in right now. And I think this is
great point.
Probably the last time you'll see cogs at this price for a while.
I agree. If you're looking at a forward option, I think he's the clear best option. I think Cogs is a terrific option. The trouble is, we've got Dunkley's, Tarantos, Rosies. That's why I'm not sort of recommending these picks. I'm assuming most people have, and most forward lines that I look at have players like that. Your Sheezels and that type. So absolutely as a forward, look no further than Cogs, in my opinion anyway, mate. Absolutely with you there, buddy. Yeah. A defender? Do you want to, you got a defender that you'd recommend for us, mate? Or
I think that might lead us into the last question, which we might just bring up a little bit. We'll bring it up.
I'll bring it up. So, here we go.
Will Day versus Jack Sinclair. So I reckon we might have a little battle here, DR. So do you want to throw out a stat or something to convince me to pick Will Day over Jack Sinclair? And I'll try to do the same with you with Sinclair.
This is going to sound really silly, right? Because SuperCoach is a stats game, isn't it? Rely on stats. That's what gets us points, right? But for me, there are times, mate, where nothing can beat the eye test. Nothing can beat the eye test. I go back to that game that he played against Geelong, and it wasn't his highest scoring game of the year. That was a week before, which was really impressive. But the fact that he could follow up that game in wet conditions against, I'm going to say, tough opposition. The Geelong had a bit of a rough start to the year, but they've come back now. We know what Geelong can bring to the table, right? He did everything for me that a good midfielder should do. He tackled well. He got enough of the football. He went in hard. He was even blocking for teammates. He intercept mark. He was in the back line, up to the forward line. I think he covered the ground really, really well. The leadership that he possesses, even though he's a slight frame, you wouldn't know it, the way that he goes in for that football. He must be stronger than he looks, Will Day. He must be, because to me, he still seems like a pretty slim sort of a player with a lot of growing to do. And hey, he's still a young player, so he does have a lot of growing to do. But I don't think he's ever going to be one of those really strong-bodied type mids, But he's got the attitude, mate. He's got the mongrel. And, well, when we talk about mongrel, obviously being rubbed out for a couple of weeks, possibly a little bit unlucky, some say. But for me, mate, it's the fact that I can be getting who I think is Hawthorn's number one midfielder at this low price with that low break even, I think for me is too good to pass up. And look, for example, last week, and some people may say, look, there's not that much difference between Day and Sinclair in price, right? And it depends how you look at not too much difference. The week before, I was $400, mate, $400 away from only using 2 trades to get Cogs into my side. In the end, I had to use a boost, trade out Baker for Matty Johnson. And I wish I hadn't have done that in the end. That hasn't worked out well. I'd much rather still have Baker in my side at the moment. So, that's just one example that every dollar counts. So this is another thing that I'm taking into high consideration here. What I will say is that if these blokes are at an identical price, I'm pretty much not thinking I'm going with Sinclair. Is that more of the name? I'm not too sure, but Sinclair is much more the guaranteed pick. We've seen a season of premium numbers from him. He looked fantastic last year. I was an owner. I watched him really closely and really enjoyed owning him as a pick. And I would really enjoy owning him as a pick this year as well. But the fact that Day comes at that cheaper price, I'm saving around 50K. that's probably the thing that really puts Day over the line for me, mate. And call me a tight ass. I could be. Some people just say, pay the extra 50, mate, and get that guaranteed play. Well, nothing's a guarantee, is it? But pretty much the guaranteed safer type pick with premium history. So, I may sound a little bit crazy, and I think I may be, mate, but that's my reasoning behind the Day pick. I know that I didn't use a heap of numbers there and stats. It was more from what I viewed myself over those last 2 games, mate, but certainly did everything that he could. Only slight concern, maybe the fact that Warple has actually played pretty well the last couple of weeks, and how much do they want to disturb that mid-rotation? I'm not too sure, but in my opinion, if I was a coach, I think he's their best midfielder. Get him straight back in and get him back to work. He's had a couple of weeks off. Time for him to crack in and really make up for missing those last 2 weeks, mate. But just my thoughts, mate. Tell us why you are a big fan of Mr. Jack Sinclair.
Well, firstly, have I just stolen your entire script for the stocky about Will Day? Is that...
Mate, pretty much.
Just going to cut this out of the studio and just put it into that one? But no, on Jack Sinclair, I got to shout out one of my boys, Alex Tran, one of my schoolmates who we do SuperCoach with still. He gave me a bit of inside information on Jack Sinclair. His last 16 games at Marvel Stadium, he's had 16 tons. So 16 out of his last 16 games at Marvel Stadium have been SuperCoach tons. He comes to 544K, and I guess one of the things with Jack Sinclair's, he's still got a high enough break even. So he's got a 117 break even. Now, if you think he's going to go bonkers against Port Adelaide, you bring him in. I think that I'm now in the boat where Will Day this week and Jack Sinclair next week is a real possibility. And the one thing that scares me about Will Day is that given this season of carnage, how much risk can we take on at this point in time? So Will Day hasn't played a full season in his career, whether that be due to injury or he wasn't match ready in his first couple of seasons. But I think it's now at that point where if he's an inside mid, you're almost taking the risk of, okay, he's going to miss a week here or there, but everything else that he provides is good enough for me to counter that. And I think this reminds me, and might remind you of Callum Mills a couple of years ago, when you just knew that Mills was going to miss a game due to Achilles soreness or when he was defender, but his ceiling is that good that you just take it on. And given the value presented, it's almost one that you can't pass up. So DR, can you just tell me, in the round 12 bye, we've got Brisbane, St Kilda, Fremantle, and Sydney. How many players do you have from that bye? Because I think compared to previous seasons, mate, there's sort of I feel like there's a back air. You sort of want to front end some of your premiums because, like, personally, I don't have many. I have Goulden, Marshall, Goulden, Marshall, Dunkley at the moment as premiums from those teams, and 3 premiums. I feel like I can take on 1, maybe even 2 premiums, given that it's best 18, sorry. And that really sort of provides more incentive to bring in a Sinclair, especially if you have trouble with some of the later buys and covering for that. What's your situation?
That's a really good point, mate. That's a really good point. Well, I've got the same 3 as you in Marshall, Dunkley, and Goulden, but I've got Shrek as well. Obviously in my ruck. A big reason for actually starting Radigalia, thinking long-term into the buys, mate, to be honest. So that's a really good point, isn't it? That's a really good point.
So it may not be what you want to do this week, but I think that those 4 teams, 1, you target them now, and 2, you target them straight after round 12. And if I'm thinking, I don't envision myself bringing in Jack Steele, not Andy Brayshaw. To answer that question about 2, Caleb Strong becomes very enticing now. Sydney, Callum Mills, if he gets DPP, maybe. Goulden, like at the moment, I think he's a firm hold. Just need to see how his role pans out. He lost his CBAs with the Roberts injury, so just a wait and see on that. Too early. It's a luxury trade of all luxury trades. And which other team am I forgetting?
Freo
and Fremantle.
Brisbane.
Yeah, Fremantle. I mean, yes, Sarong, maybe Luke Ryan, and then Brisbane, Lockie Neal. I'm not really can't really see anyone else sort of from there. So it's, in terms of players you probably want in your final 22, Lachie Neale, Jack Sinclair, Sean Darcy if you don't have English, and maybe Callum Mills. It's not the best pool of players to have to choose from, right?
Yeah, there's really no one that's screaming absolutely pick me from that bunch, is there? Look, certainly I've got hope for many of those players that they can come good, but you're absolutely right, mate. You're absolutely right. And I don't think that there's many coaches at this stage that are actually looking ahead to the buys, and lots of people, I won't get into a big buy discussion. We could be here for the next half an hour talking buys, mate. But you get the different coaches that really take into account with their starting team. Those blokes, like possibly at this stage when you're looking, when upgrade season comes around, making sure you're looking at that structure. Where am I sitting? Okay, I'm going to maybe make sure I try to load up on this or take one away, etc., etc. And you get the other blokes that it gets to, what is it, round 12, whenever the buys start, and go, shit, it's buy round. How many have I got this week?
And then they complain.
Exactly. It's like, hang on, man. You've had 3 months to plan for this. So come on, give us a break. So it's a really interesting discussion, mate. And I think it's really good advice that you're giving. When you are making trades at this stage of the year, just make sure you check on your buy structure. Don't let it be the be all and end all to your decision, but it can certainly come into play, mate. Yeah, a really, really good point there, buddy. Really, really good point.
So I think what we've sort of come to is Will Day this week, Jack Sinclair next week, and plan work around that if you don't have both of them.
That's right. With I suppose the main risk being of trading in Will Day, if he doesn't become a keeper, with the lack of cash gen that we've got potentially, you may just have to keep him. You're pretty much, I think, committing to almost the long term. You just got to ride him out. If he goes bad, then hey, you've taken a gamble, hasn't worked out. It is what it is, sort of thing, mate. I think I'll sort of touch on it before, but what to do with Grundy now? I think I already mentioned that you've probably got a couple of options here. There's Shrek and there's Tim English. If you're looking for ruckmen that are in form, or else you take the hit this week, keep him on for another week, and you trade him to Gawn when he plummets in price. I'm saying if you can, go to Tim English. He's the highest scoring player in the comp, not just the highest scoring ruckman. The bloke is just having a phenomenal season. So I think if you can, you go to him. Or else I'd be quite happy with Shrek. I already mentioned in my quick round review that I've now seen him do it against the informed ruckman in the comp. That gives me a lot of confidence going forward. He's got a massive ceiling. I'm sure that there could be a low game coming up, but I think most of the rucks, probably apart from Tim English, and that's why I'm recommending him as my number one pick, because I just don't see a low game coming from him. I think apart from English, most of them do have a low game in them anyway. So any different thoughts on that one, Bud? Or
I think you nailed it in terms of that, mate. It's either go for one of the big boys, English or Darcy. I think I'd like to say that a lot of the teams that have Grundy don't have both of them. Because I see a lot, especially in the Twitter community, everyone has Rowan Marshall, it feels like.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But Grundy, or you just have to cop it for a couple of weeks and wait for Gawn to bottom out. But even then, do you really want Max Gawn when Brodie Grundy's in the team? I just think that you've made the money now with Grundy, cash him out. You knew that this was going to be when you brought him in, you knew that it was either going to be you have him for 3 weeks without Gawn, you have him for 5 weeks without Gawn, but you're going to have to trade him out at a certain point, which was why a lot of people like yourself, DR, were saying Gawn to English at round 2. Get it over with. You're going to have to do it eventually anyway, so might as well just do it now. But that's my take on it. Go for one of the big boys. Basically
awesome.
Pretty.
One other, sorry, mate. I just had a quick thought, right, as we were talking about there. I just want to throw a really quick scenario at you, because I was saying before that I think Asava's job security is really, really good at the moment. Would you consider given the fact that he's been in decent form in the last 3 weeks, I think it's 88, 88, and a 75, which is stomachable, certainly rookie scores on field. Would you consider, even if you're really keen on someone like a Cogs, you've got a Sava in your forward line, move a Sava short term to your rucks, get Grundy out this week, and then maybe invest in a Cogs, and then look to maybe survey, how's Gawn going to go? Can Darcy keep it up? Will I just pay for English in a couple of weeks? Could that be a strategy that you may potentially even look at, mate?
Yeah, well, most certainly. Like, if you're thinking about in terms of scenario, would you do so basically what you're saying is Grundy plus, let's say, a Chandler, or Grundy plus Fergus Green in terms of on-field points, Grundy plus Fergus Green versus Cogs plus Asava. Who would you like think out of that? I'm leaning Asava and Cogs. And I'll tell you what, being at the Geelong West Coast game live, having Tom Stewart there is such a big influence on Asava radically. He understands where to position himself. And if we just want to have a think about how this translates to Supercoach scoring, in the 2 games that Tom Stewart missed, Asava went 31 and 47, and Tom Stewart got injured in the first quarter of the Geelong game, but if I remember correctly, Asava was on like 20 at quarter time. So the games or moments that Stewart's played, he's gone 20 and a quarter, 88, 88, and 75. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that Tom Stewart sets up that defense, and the leadership he shows to younger players like an Asava is really, really strong. And for that reason, I think that what you're saying is a good idea there with regards to Cogs.
That's a fantastic point that you make. I didn't actually make that connection between his scoring and Stewart being out of the side. And I think you're exactly right. Now that you say it, it makes so much sense as that real general down back and that added leadership. It would really benefit Sav, because some people might say, he might lose points because Stewart may take marks off him, etc. But we're actually thinking I'm actually thinking after hearing what you've just said there, that it's actually good for the Rat King.
Yep.
And no coincidence possibly. So I love your thinking there. There is absolutely elite, mate.
Even just being at the game, I think this is something you have to be at the game for. When you look behind the field, in that West Coast game, Asava was the loose man for a period of time. Like, Tom Stewart allowed that to happen, and Stewart scored 135 because he's a fantasy pig. But
sharing the love,
he does share the love a bit. So I think it's a mutual relationship they've got down there at the Cattery. But sorry, go on, DR.
Love it, mate. Love it. Well, look, mate, we've only got one more question here. And look, we know that we're certainly getting towards upgrade. Well, we're in upgrade season at the moment. But look, the question is, do we prioritise trading out dead rookies? So we're talking your Constables here, possibly Matty Roberts for the short term, your Campbell Chesses, if you've still got them, a fattened rookie. So we could be talking about someone like a Connor McKenna that's, got a mid-60s break even. We could be talking about, if you haven't already traded out a McKenzie, for example, even a Wilmot, some people looking to move on, your Liam Jones types, or mid-prices. So, mid-prices is a pretty big range, but we could be talking, just say, a Setterfield type or Warple type. I know Warple's got a lower break even, so probably not him this week. But just as a general, mate, I'll ask you, what are you prioritising at this stage? So are you trying to get rid of, a Matty Roberts type, or are you possibly looking to get rid of a fattened rookie so you can keep that upgrade cadence going? Or maybe a couple of those mid prices, maybe a Setterfield, you're going, well, see you later, mate. You've had your time to move either up or down.
So it's a brilliant question you've raised there, because some of the rookies, common rookies that a lot of people have, like the Hollands, Phillippo, Phillips, they've got mid-40s break evens, even Cade Chandler as well. So it's like, it may be a little bit too early, which comes back to our SuperCoach principles that we talked about at the start of the year about moving a rookie on if you want to get that step up. I guess just the thing, though, to consider is that cash is very hard to come by this year. And someone like a Lockie Cowan is not going to make much more money. If he was to have a spike game, it was against St Kilda without Sard and against the worst defense against the Saints, who give up the most fantasy points to defenders. and he scored a mid-30 score. So he doesn't have the pedigree to score well, which is really disappointing because I was really high on him in preseason, given his junior numbers and all of that. So what I'm considering right now is Setherfield plus Cowan to Sinclair or Day plus Mitchell. If I go Day, I can bank 100K, and that could be really valuable to get Sinclair the following week with 2 fattened up rookies. So that's the thought process I have. At the same time, DR, I'd love your thoughts on this, but holding Setherfield to get in one of the big boy mids in a couple of weeks, like a Clary, is the other thing to consider here. What are your thoughts? Where are you looking? Are you looking to get rid of a dead rookie like a Roberts, who's got a poor loophole fiction, 2 is probably out for 8 or so weeks and may not get another look in?
It's a really tough question to answer, isn't it? And I think this one, to be honest, there's no right answer. So if people are actually looking for advice here, I don't think there's one answer that's going to fit all. It depends what your particular team's looking like. It depends on, are we talking mid prices like, a Sheasel, for example, a Setterfield, or Warple who's got a low break even. There's so many contributing factors when making decisions like this. But I suppose the way that I'll talk about for me, I made pretty much a commitment, mate, 2 to 3 weeks ago, that I'm purely focusing on value, what I think is value. So fallen premiums, your blokes like your Days that, who I think have the potential to possibly get up close to premium status. So for me at this stage, in order to do that, I can't be trading out dead rookies for rookies at the same price, basically, or only making 20, 30K in a trade, because it's not really allowing me to upgrade. At this stage, I'm not looking to trade out any of my mid prices either. I'm purely looking to go those fattened rookies. So for me, it's pretty selective with fattened rookies at this stage. And the reason for that is because my main objective at the moment is to get as many rookies off field as I can. So rather than paying up, just say going from a Setterfield to whoever it is, an elite mid, my priority is actually getting off the Wilmots of the world, the McKennas of the world, and getting in blokes who I think can give me a comfortable score each week. That's my main priority. So the blokes like your Setterfields and your Hoppers, for me, I'm not touching at the moment because, and look, you don't know, but at least you're not getting hopefully a 40 or a 30 type score like you could be copying off these rookies. Pretty disappointing score from Setterfield at the end of the day last week, but it's still stomachable on field, if you know what I mean. It's not an absolute disaster. With Hopper, you're getting 94. So for me, mate, I'm looking to keep onto as many mid prices as I can that are performing at the level. Look, if one of them falls off the face of the earth, see you later. You've done your time. The break even's up. You've got to go. But it's the blokes, as I said, like the McKennas, the Liam Jones, who I don't feel are reliable blokes. They could give you something good or something absolutely terrible. So for me, mate, it's actually those fattened rookies at this stage.
Yeah.
But look, the trouble is, if a couple of the rookies that we've brought in, or we're even bringing in the next couple of weeks, then turn to dead rookies themselves, wow, those people that maybe got rid of a Chesser, got rid of a Matty Roberts early and brought in, let's just say a couple of rookies that are successful short-term picks, then you could be buggered. You could be down a fair bit of cash gen there at the same time, mate. So look, there's no right answer either way. I can certainly agree with what you're saying as well. One of those fat rookies, well, as a mid-pricer, move them on to an absolute elite because, at the end of the day, that's our objective, isn't it? Get as many uber elites in as possible. So, but look, as I said, mate, for my personal strategy at the moment, it's fattened rookies. But in saying this, I can't see myself in a couple of weeks having a heap of fattened rookies left because I'll be getting rid of them, and I'm relying on the blokes that I bring in, last week, this week, the week after, to then fatten themselves to make the money. Yeah. So there'll come a point in time where these blokes will go, but it may be around, I'm talking the mid prices here. For me, that may be closer to the buy rounds, I think, mate, but it may be a bit of personal strategy there.
Not a question on here, but I just want to pose to you. Well, I was saying he's a keeper a couple of weeks ago. Harry Sheasel, any concern there?
I do have a bit of concern. I do. Look, before I get into it, right, we got to remember that he had, that thumb niggle. Was it his hip or was something?
Yeah,
He's going on with another
quad corky.
Quad, sorry, that was the quad
Yeah.
corky. And Nick Holman. Nick Holman's a pretty dogged opponent. Nick is a pretty dogged opponent. He was in his pocket for a lot of the game, right? So, look, he's not going to be sore every game. Look, I suppose being a first-year player, that's maybe something we do need to take into consideration, that he may feel the knocks more than a more seasoned player. So that may be a little bit of a concern. The concern for me is that I think he's going to find it very hard to deal with attention when attention comes his way.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be hard to predict when that attention might come. We may have ideas in our head and they may or they may not. I wouldn't be surprised if any team week to week gave him attention. And at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if he was let loose more like a Dacos type. So I think that the pick now becomes a bit more of a gamble from week to week, mate. I think that what we saw for the first 5 weeks was absolute consistency in that role. But given the fact that there is a chance that he may receive some more attention in the near future, I'm just not as confident on the pick. It's almost like you could lock in 100 plus, wasn't it? It's just like, he'll go 100 plus, and he didn't think too much about it. After last week, just one round, it's given us a fair bit to think about, because hang on, all of a sudden he's had some attention and he really didn't have much of an impact. I know they moved him forward for a while, moved him on the ball for a while. So I think that's pretty much what'll happen. But the other contributing factor that I didn't mention, as well, was Aaron Hall, the addition of Aaron Hall. So how much does that come into play? We know what Hawley's done in the past. We also know that Hawley's rarely on the park, and there's every chance that he could do a hammy in the next couple of weeks and be out of the side again. I don't wish that as well, because I love Aaron Hall. I owned him, and he was a great pick for me a year or two ago. But I suppose in a nutshell, mate, I am slightly concerned, but I'm not concerned in the fact that he's such a highly owned player at this stage.
Yep.
I'm talking just for probably the next week or two, unless someone's going to go really rogue move and go really early. They've said, all right, this is enough. Even the pure risk of him getting tagged, I'm getting out of the pick now. I think most people are going to give him at least another couple of weeks. So I feel safety in numbers, I suppose, is the best way to put it for me, mate.
Yeah.
But
I think
what
agree with you
mate?
there. Agree with you. Not much to add. I think give him a week, see what his role's like. Maybe it's just a mulligan. Willing to give him that. He's got a very high break even this week, but I think even still, he's got an average above his break even, which for a guy that's a rookie is averaging 100 plus. You just give him the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully, bounce back this week, and I think that Clark will still want to keep him involved and not put him in the forward line, which he scored, I think, 25 odd points in the final quarter to salvage a semi-reasonable score. With regards to that, I think we're good with the mailbag then, mate. Do we want to head off to just talk about our trades? I'll talk about mine. I'm thinking Seathers plus Cowan into Sinclair or Day plus Mitchell. I think I justified that before. Your thoughts, mate?
Well, for me, mate, you mentioned before that, and I absolutely agree with you. Cowan, even if he's playing, he is such a slow burn. I don't see a spike game coming. So he's gone for me this week. I know we're not making a heap of cash, but how much more is there to make? The big decision for me is, do I trade out Liam Jones or Connor McKenna? Now, if you're looking at the numbers, it would suggest you trade out McKenna, because Jones's break even, I think, is around 26 or 28, and McKenna is in the 60s. However, I don't know if this is a Brisbane bias. I've got a little bit more faith in McKenna. So that's a big decision for me this week. It might be a bit of blind faith, because Rich has come into the side, and I think he slightly affected McKenna's scoring output. At the same time, there was times where I watched him live last week, and you wouldn't have been able to see this on the camera, but I actually felt like he was putting himself in good positions and dangerous positions, but he just seems to get burnt at times as well. So if those players actually see him and go through him, I think there's a little bit more meat on the bone. I don't think it's actually as bad as what it seems, because you can't actually see this on the camera. You need to be at the game. As you saw with the West Coast game, you'd see little bits and pieces that you just can't see in the TV. You need to be there. So that's one thing I noticed with him. So that may be what's sort of putting me over the line, keeping McKenna. And I love my Brisbane boys, but it's going to be yeah, definitely Cowan, one of Jones and McKenna, and in will come Will Day and Seamus Mitchell for me, mate.
Too easy.
How about
the
yourself,
Hawks
buddy?
boys,
And don't want to use a boost. And I've got 3 boosts left. I want to keep onto them.
Yep.
Not keen on using the boost this week, mate. Just going the 2.
Awesome. I guess just the last thing to add in there is that with regards to Jones or McKenna, it's not as easy as the break evens because you got to field one of these guys. Remember, so
true.
Who would you rather field out of those 2? And are confident in being able to field one of those 2.
Well, for me, the confidence would go with McKenna. I think, mate.
So I think that's where it's got to lie in terms of that.
Good advice, mate. I appreciate
it. You don't want to.
Yeah.
You might get an 80 from Jones, but you may also get a 20. And he's shown both of them in the same season.
So true. And that's why, again, with a pick like this, when you need to make a decision, you can't be kicking yourself next week if Jones does get an 80, because you know that it could happen. As you said, you know it could be and truly be a 20 as well. So these are things that you just got to suck up, unfortunately, mate. It can be frustrating, but got to suck it up.
So I'm going to finish off with close up with some captains. Now, you want to go first?
I must say, mate, it's a little bit tough this week, and I'll try to be quick because we do need to wrap this up. With me being the host, obviously we've gone well over time, mate. So anyway, mate, the issue for me this week is that when I'm using my loophole, I love to use Nick Madden because there's no stuffing around. You just know that you've got Shrek or it's always Rowan for me anyway, but Rowan on the bench, you know he's coming on. It's such an easy loop. The issue this week, mate, is that he plays one of the earlier games. So you've got the Saints and Port on the Friday night, 7:50. Then on the Saturday at 1:45, you've got the Lions and Freo. But at 2:10 at the SCG, you've got the Swans and the Giants. So really, if you're planning on using Nick Madden and here's your loop, you've got to choose someone from Port and the Saints. And I don't want to pick Rosie or Marshall as my VC. So the only bloke for me is going to be Charlie Constable. So it's a bit of a risk. You know, I may not be able to loop a rookie score. I may just have to commit to, who I actually want on field at, let's just say, D6 as my D7 emergency to make sure that I've definitely got a non-playing player on the field. So if I can do that, mate, if I'm going to go with Constable, then I think that it's probably Bont after that massive game. Look, I fully expect Nash to give him some attention, but can you actually stop him? I'm not too sure. So I'm just going to go with Bont. I think I almost owe it to the bloke after his 180 last week. And then it's a big decision for me. I'm going all the way to the Sunday. I think it's the last game of the round between the Crows and the Pies. So do you know what, mate? I've just got this sick feeling, right? And I'm most likely going to be way off the mark. Benny Keys.
No, 100%.
I can see Benny Keys going straight to Nick Dacos at the first bounce. And I may be having visions and hallucinating here. And Adelaide may just do what every other team's done this season and go, no, Nicky, get your 40 plus, mate. But I just see Ben Keys born for this role. I reckon Ben Keys will want the role. He's that type of player. He's a team man. He won't give 2 hoots about his fantasy score, Benny Keys. You know, whatever he needs to do for the team, he will do for the team. And I've just got this feeling that he's going to put his hand up during the week and go, Nixie, I want this role.
Yeah.
Give me Nicky Dacos, and I'm going to be the first man this year to actually shut him down. So my gut says to me to go with Rory Laird over Nick Dacos this week, mate. And I know he didn't do big calls, but for the first time this year, I can actually see a bit of a Dacos fail coming. Let's be honest. He's going to have a really tough night, or he's going to go 130 plus. It's going to be one of the two, and that's a really obvious thing to say, I know. But I'm going with Nicky Dacos is going to be, he's going to have a tough night with Benny Keys. That my prediction, mate. That's due to nothing but gut feel and nothing else in that, mate. How about yourself, buddy? What do you reckon about that?
I like it. Ben Keys went to Adam's side and shut him down when we played them a couple of weeks ago. So I'm almost
guaranteeing. He did too, didn't he?
I'm almost guaranteeing that he will get a role, Ben Keys, on Nick Dacos. Bont, I think, is my VC, but I'm going to go to Jordan Dawson. I'm going to give you a reason why I'm not going Rory Laird this week. So early in the podcast, you mentioned that Rory Laird had 12 tackles, which is about 48 fantasy points. Now, guess the team that allows the least tackles per game in the AFL.
Oh, well, I think he must be coming up against him this week, is he?
Collingwood. So the great man, Jaden Popowski on Twitter, hit him up, asked him for some tackle numbers, and teams against Collingwood. Now, this is not including the Essendon numbers from yesterday, but teams against Collingwood only average 46.6 tackles a game. For context, if you play the Bulldogs, you average 69.2 tackles a game. So that's 23 tackle difference between first and last. And if I want to lock in Laird as a captain, not a VC. So if he was a VC, it'd probably be a different choice because you get to screen his score. But I want to be convinced about the captain. You want to be convinced about the captain, right? So for that reason, I think the king of Adelaide now, Jordan Dawson, might be the fallback option. But just as a smoky, I think you might like this one. Rowan Marshall, he's gone 127, 132, and 160 in his last 3 against Port Adelaide. And on average, Port Adelaide give up 12.44 points extra to a ruckman's average when they play them. So if Marshall is projected at what his average is a 99, they would assume that he scores 112 with scope for bigger games because Rowan Marshall isn't your standard ruckman. So that's just my
possibly
ice cold VC on a Friday night. You can use your Madden loop if you'd like. It may work. It may not. But I think that it's not the worst option if you don't like any of the fallback captaincy options to Bontempelli.
That's not a bad point, mate. Because for some people, and I like myself, I'm almost by leaving my loop later, I'm almost sacrificing being able to loop a rookie score and having to commit. So it's certainly an option. And remember, it's only the VC. You're not committing your C. If you've got, your Dawsons, your Clary, whoever you're half confident with the captain, maybe that could actually put you over the line of going for that earlier game. It's certainly a good shout out, mate. I do not mind that shout out at all. That's why you are the numbers man, mate. You bring these stats. I
don't know. This could be an ice cold tech. We might have to come back to this on next week. But Rowan Marshall as a VC is not the worst option this week.
That's it, mate. They're numbers. They're facts that you're putting out.
It's
here,
in
mate.
the numbers. It's in the numbers. And it's not just
right.
his record against Port Adelaide. It's the fact that Port Adelaide is almost as bad as West Coast is when it comes to restricting ruckman.
And that's bad. We all know about the West Coast story, don't we, mate? That's you don't need any numbers. As soon as you make that comparison, you go, wow, okay, this is getting pretty dire here. So,
guess who had 10 clearances? Bailey Williams had 10 clearances on the weekend. If Bailey Williams can have 13 he scored 133.
Wow. I missed that one, mate, I must say. I completely missed that.
If Bailey Williams is scoring 133 against Port Adelaide, come on. This is Rowan Marshall. Crikey. Sign me up.
You've given me a lot to... You really have, mate. In all honesty, given me a lot to think about now. Because
I'm convincing myself now.
He needs to come back, though, doesn't he? He's too good to just be delivering mediocre scores.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I am half on the train. You know when those trains are opening, they get really packed.
Yeah.
I reckon I've got half a body on now, mate. I'm still not. I haven't got a firm grip, but I have made contact anyway.
Got to convince yourself.
Contact with the pick.
That's it.
I don't mind at all, mate. But look, mate. I think that is it for this week. Mate, It was great to see you again, mate. Really missed you last week, obviously, mate. Like brothers now, SuperCoach brothers, obviously. We did lose Spills, obviously, because we're doing this live. Not live stream, but obviously recording live. I haven't had a chance to actually message Spills and gone, what happened there, mate? But I'm sure that his
internet dropped out, I reckon. So
unfortunately,
but we had a good chat with him. Got him his tuk-tuk sacrifice, which is
that was elite, mate. That's been one of the best, mate. That's been one of the best. The tuk-tuk, and what a week to bring that out, mate. The golden tuk-tuk. And there'll be lots of people, not just Spills, that'll be appreciative of that, because as I said, I know a fair few in the community that brought him in, and not only brought him in, captained him. Ouch. Jeez, it hurts, mate. But look, hopefully we all have some good luck this week. Hopefully, mate, you can keep climbing the ranks. I'm just super stoked for you, mate. From 84K around the 6K mark now. Sky's the limit now, mate. So what? I suppose the next goal is what? Short term 5K, and then as far as you can go into that, mate.
Round by round, it's just those baby steps. Tracking the rankings. I guess it's a marathon. It's why we don't give up at round 1, because it's just the game. It's just the game, how it is. We've got to have fun. Enjoy the players. Enjoy seeing your players do well. Don't need to be embarrassed too much when they don't do well, because at the end of the day, it's a game to have fun. Embrace your wins, embrace your losses, and we're always here to lend a supporting hand whenever you guys need.
Absolutely. I think with those words of wisdom, mate, that is a great way to close the potty out for this week. So, guys, as always, thank you very much for tuning in. Always appreciate the love. Would love to see some comments, any questions down there in the comments section. We'll obviously get to those as soon as we can. But that's it for now, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. And Janath, my man, look forward to chatting again next week, mate. Cheers, bud.
Exactly right, mate. Have a good one.